Welcome to Icons. In Icons, we acquaint you with the different books, the people, the events, and the places in the Bible. We are in the books that teach us the history of Israel. We are in the first book of Kings. We are still continuing the lives of Elijah, one of the most powerful prophets that Israel has ever seen. We see Elijah standing as one man against an entire nation, which is under King Ahab. And we see now that King Ahab is dead. We see the whole prophecy that Elijah has mentioned, which has now come true. We're following the life of Elijah, and we have also completed the mighty miracle that the Lord has done on Mount Carmel to show the people of Israel that He is the one true God. We have a wonderful panel to help us in this discussion. We have with us June Jose. June is from Kottayam. She teaches in a prestigious school there, and she's also the administrator. June, welcome on the program.
Thank you.
We have with us Tess Joseph. Tess is a senior English teacher in the same school in Kottayam. Tess, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
We have with us Reverend Dr. Joseph Thundiparmil. Father Joseph has finished his PhD in Scripture from Rome. He is a very valued resource person here at the Divine Institute of Bible and Spirituality. He has also taught for many years in the Pontifical Seminary in Alway, and he's also the resource person of our program. Father, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
We have this Mark. Mark is from Manipur. Mark has also finished his course here at the Divine Institute of Bible and Spirituality. He is going on for his further studies in music. Mark, welcome on the program.
Thank you.
We are continuing the story of Elijah. King Ahab is dead. He has died a miserable death. We'll ask Father to situate exactly where we are. Father, could you help us, please?
We are in the first book of Kings, and as far as the history of the kings of Israel is concerned, it is not only simply the history of these kings that are given there, but also some prophetical figures come.
Yes.
People like Elijah, Elisha,
Yes.
or before them Nathan.
Yes.
Why is it that the history of kings is given together with these figures of prophets? And here we have to see how the Jewish rabbis look at history. Some of the books which we consider historical, for example, Joshua, Samuel, Judges, and Kings, the Jewish rabbis categorize them as former prophets. The reason is history is always prophetical. God is speaking through history. As Isaiah and Jeremiah, they were speaking God's word.
Yes.
According to the Jewish understanding of history, history is a medium through which God is speaking. And more specifically, through Elijah, Elisha, Nathan, these prophetical figures, because they come and interpret the events and the persons in the light of what God had in view for Israel. Therefore, history is there is no pure history.
Okay.
As far as Israel is concerned, there is no pure history. History is always God's history. And that is the reason why the prophetical figures also are coming in the midst of the events and narratives about history.
Okay. And also, Father, I think God sends these prophets at very significant times.
Yeah.
It's like, a change in history itself happens when each of these prophets come and they, intervene in the history of Israel in such a way that the Lord uses them to completely change. It's like when in the earlier episode we had done about Elijah, how he comes at a time when the whole of Israel is turned away from Yahweh.
Yeah, that is true, because after Moses, then Joshua came,
Yes.
and after Joshua, the judges, and after the judges, the prophets came. And that to some extent, the prophets are continuing the very same mission which Moses had as far as the people of God is concerned. Therefore, to reveal God's will or to remind them of the law of God, as Moses was doing it, so the prophets also are continuing, and more specifically, at critical moments in the history of Israel, some prophetical figures, as we are seeing Elijah, the case of Elijah.
Yes, ma'am.
Elijah can be considered almost as a second Moses, because Yahwism was in danger, because there was the royal patronage of Baalism, the cult of Baal, by Jezebel and Ahab. It is at that time that Elijah steps in very strongly, and he says, Yahweh alone is God. So the other things are nothing. So that he stood very strongly for Yahweh, and therefore he is considered the prophet of fire.
Because he brought fire down from heaven.
Also that.
Yes. Thank you, Father.
Father, why is it said that the dogs licked the blood of King Ahab?
That was what Elijah had predicted to Ahab in the background of the Naboth story. We know that in chapter 21 of the first book of Kings, Naboth's vineyard was unjustly occupied by the king Ahab, by making some false documents, etc. And then God had sent this prophet Elijah to meet Ahab and pronounce his judgments. And at that time, the prophet said, on the very spot where dogs licked the blood of Naboth, dogs will lick your blood also. But of course, this prophecy is also only fulfilled only partially, because as far as we can understand, it is not in Jezreel, because the Naboth's garden was in Jezreel,
Yes.
but it is taking place in a different blood. But the important point is, the dogs do not make a distinction between royal blood and ordinary man's blood. Now, here also we have to understand the background of stoning Naboth to death. According to the Israel understanding, when a man is stoned to death, there is not a separate burial for him. The person is stoned, and a heap of stone is piled up upon his dead body. And in the process of stoning, the blood will be oozing forth, and the dogs will coming and licking it. So this is what happened in the case of Naboth. And now this is exactly what is going to happen in your case. And that is why the prophet said, the dogs will lick your blood. You consider your blood royal blood. Now, the dogs don't make a distinction between royal blood or ordinary person's blood. But now, dogs licking the blood means it is a very low type of end, a tragic end that a person is going to have.
So that is symbolic also.
Yeah, correct.
Thank you, Father.
Father, what is the meaning of prostitutes having a bath in the pool where the chariot was washed?
On the whole, in every society, the prostitutes are considered to be the meanest type of people. Prostitutes having a bath in the pool, that means an ordinary place where this kind of cast out of the society, they are coming and having the bath. Now, Ahab, supposed to be the king of Israel, and the place where his chariot is washed, there is a royal furniture. Well, royal furniture, royal carriage is washed. It is in that pool where the prostitutes also are going to have the bath. Therefore, it comes to that level. That means Ahab has come down to the level of ordinary prostitutes. So that is a punishment which God has given through the prophet.
Yes.
So it just brings to force how low he has become.
Correct. And it is a shameful act. Because during his lifetime, Ahab, he is the mighty king of Israel. But at his death, he has come to the level, the low level of a prostitute, where the dogs come. We can say the dogs, the prostitutes. So these are all symbolic elements where the low status is given. And that is actually what is awaiting you.
So, Father, actually, that means this is happening in the sight of whole of Israel.
Correct.
Which means their king is killed, the dogs are licking the blood, and nobody is doing anything about it.
So this is the end.
Yes.
This is divine justice.
I mean, the prophecy is fulfilled.
Yeah, prophecy is fulfilled.
Father, what is the judgment about King Jehoshaphat?
Jehoshaphat, he was the king of Judah. So he was friendly with Ahab. That is why both of them went together to confront the king of Syria. And then usually at the end of the reign of each king, whether in Israel or in Judah, a judgment is given. The judgment that is given about Jehoshaphat is twofold. And it is said, he put an end to the male prostitute. That was a system there. There were male prostitution and female prostitution. And then that is something very positive that Jehoshaphat did. But still it is said, he did not stop the worship in high places. So what is the meaning of worship in high places? Jerusalem is the place of worship.
Yes.
Where Yahweh said, I will put my name. So that is the place of true worship of Yahweh. But in northern Israel, there was Bethel as a kind of counter sanctuary to that. In addition to that, there were places in Israel and Judah related to the patriarchs, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and all such people, where God had appeared to them, the so-called theophany. In course of time, in those places, for a place like Gilgal, for example, so there were some sanctuaries, and people were worshipping Yahweh. But if it was only the worship of Yahweh, that would have been tolerated. But what happened was, in course of time, these places became also places of pagan worship under the influence of people like Jezebel and Ahab. Therefore, places of worship in high places, that means these high places, That's a typical name for the sanctuaries other than Jerusalem or Bethel. Now the people had worshipped there and worshipping not Yahweh but pagan gods. But that kind of worship, Yehoshaphat did not stop. So on the one hand, though he did something very positive, on the other hand, a negative judgment is given about Yehoshaphat at the end.
Thank you, Father.
Father, it's also mentioned here in 1 Kings chapter 22, verse 44, Jehoshaphat also made peace with the king of Israel. So does this show that slowly they are going towards a kind of unification of Israel?
Yeah, that also is a positive assessment of the person of Yehoshaphat. Because according to the book of Deuteronomy, the most basic theological principle was one God, one place of worship,
Yes.
one people and one country, one nation.
Yes.
And therefore here there is a movement towards one nation.
Yes.
After the death of Solomon in 931, Israel was divided into Israel and Judah, into two nations.
Yes.
That was an ideology which the Yahwistic or the Deuteronomists never acknowledged. But here, in so far as Yehoshaphat made a movement of peace,
Yes.
to some extent we can say it was a movement towards unification.
Yes.
As one people and one nation.
One nation.
So that's actually, from that point of view, it was a positive assessment of the king of Judah, that he was moving towards this unification.
Unification. But I also want to ask you, why is it said that King Ahaziah imitated his father and mother in provoking the Lord?
Yeah, correct. So Ahaziah is the son of Ahab
Yes.
and Jezebel.
Yes.
And it is specifically said in the first book of Kings towards the end, Jezebel, a Sidonian queen,
Yes.
she introduced the cult of Baal in Israel.
Yes.
And so much so that King Ahab had a sanctuary built for Baal in Bethel.
Yes.
And therefore, when it is said that Ahaziah imitated his father and mother, that means he continued in the footsteps of his parents in continuing the worship of Baal. So that is actually as a counter sanctuary to Bethel or the true God of Israel. So there, at the time of Ahaziah also was there was Baal and there was
Yahwism.
Yahweh. So that was the sin of Jeroboam also.
Which
all the
started from
previous-
Jeroboam and now it's continuing down to Ahaziah.
Yeah, correct. Ahaziah.
Thank you much, Father.
Father, what do we learn from this about King Ahaziah?
It is said that King Ahaziah imitated his parents, and it said father and mother.
Yes.
That is significant. Mother also is mentioned here. His mother was Jezebel of Sidon, and father was Ahab. And it was Jezebel who introduced the cult of Baal with royal patronage. And when it is said that Ahaziah imitated his parents, it means what profound influence the parents have upon the children. So the behavior of the children, it is patterned to a large extent upon the behavior of the parents.
Relevant today also.
Correct. Even very, very true. That is very relevant also today. Now one has to ask, what's the type of example? It is specifically said that Ahaziah imitated the example of his parents, father and mother. So the implication is, what the parents do, it has got a profound impact or influence upon the children. So which is highly relevant even today. And to some extent, that is the lesson for us today. What Paul says, these things are written as a warning for them and as a lesson for us. So here comes the meaning of the scripture. Today when we read the scriptures, what do these sections tell us today? Now, the important duty of the parents to guide their children in the ways of God.
Thank you, Father.
Father, I just feel that in the Old Testament, every time a woman is mentioned in the Bible, always she is shown as being a negative influence on the male. For example, Eve was the cause of sin for Adam, and here Jezebel is the cause of sin for Ahab. Do you think that this reflects on the way the people thought at that time, or?
To some extent, we can say it is a realistic evaluation of events. At the same time, we should also look at the whole of the Old Testament. For example, Deborah, at the time of Judges, she was positively guiding Israel. Or later on, Ruth or Esther. So these are all characters who has had profound influence on the history of Israel. Therefore, it will be an exaggeration to say that every time the Old Testament speaks about women, it is always in the negative picture. Not only that, there are also positive things.
Father, why did King Ahaziah send his servant to the god of Ekron?
It is said that Ahaziah fell down from the rooftop.
Was that- yes.
Then he was mortally wounded. Therefore, he sent his servant to the god of Ekron
Yes.
to consult that god, a pagan god, to know whether he would survive this sickness.
Yes.
Most probably, there had been some oracle. So the priest of the temple, he will consult his god by means of some divinization process, and then to know that. So he was sent to know whether he will survive this sickness.
In fact, Ahaziah, but like you said before, he is following his parents.
Yeah.
So he's not looking towards Yahweh. He's sending his servant to the god of Ekron.
Yeah, precisely. And that is the reason why the sacred writer mentions this event. As a king of Israel, he is a son of Ahab.
Yes.
He is supposed to uphold the law and the regulations which Yahweh had given to
Yes.
And he is giving a bad example to the people. And it is in fact a terrible breach of the first commandment.
Yes.
You shall have no other God other than me,
Yes.
because I am the Lord who brought you out of the land of Egypt. So in fact, most of the kings of Israel and Judah, they are judged on this category.
Yes.
One God, as I told you, the principle is one God. You shall have only one God, that is Yahweh, one people, one place of worship, and one nation. And the kings are judged on this basis.
Thank you much, Father.
Father, what's the meaning of Baal-zebub?
In fact, that God is originally called, the god of Ekron, Baal-zebub. Baal-zebub means the Lord of the highest. But Baal-zebul means, it is a play of words, God or Lord of the flies. So, all the dirty creatures.
Okay.
So that means Israel, the sacred writer, is giving such a low name to the pagan god. He is not the Lord of the highest. The Lord of the highest is Yahweh alone. He is actually the Lord of the flies. The flies come to dirty things, to waste, to all the throw away the rotten things. And therefore he is the god of rotten things. So this is how the sacred writer and Israel is looking at this Ekron, god of Ekron.
Even in the New Testament, when Jesus drives out the spirits, there is an accusation that he is also Beelzebub. Is there any connection between that name and this name?
By and large, the people of Israel in the Old Testament, they were having a very low esteem for the gods of pagans. So the Old Testament used to call them by various names: vanity, nothingness, emptiness. So this is how usually they are qualified. Compared to Yahweh, they are nothing. The idols are nothing. Because Yahweh alone has got existence. That is means of Yahweh. Yahweh, it is coming from the Hebrew root Haya. Haya means to be. So now Yahweh alone is the one who is being in its fullness. And that is why we can translate the word Yahweh as I am who am. So all the others have got existence. Yahweh alone has got no existence. He is existence in himself. Compared to this understanding of God, he is the one who is. He is the is. So later on in the New Testament, the Gospel of John, Jesus would say, ego eimi, I am, attributing the same qualification to himself, about which the Old Testament used to speak about Yahweh. Now, compared to God who is self-existent, who is existence itself, the gods of the nations, the gods of the pagans, they are nothingness, they are emptiness. So that is why the Israel on the whole is looking down upon this kind of idols or idol worship.
Thank you.
Father, what was the response of Elijah to the servant of King Ahaziah?
King Ahaziah had sent his servants to the god of Ekron to know whether he would survive. But then the Lord said, go, get up and go and meet the servants of Ahaziah and ask them, is it because there is no God in Israel that you are going to consult the God of Ekron? Yahweh is the God of Israel. I am there. When I am there, why are you going to other gods? Or am I so insignificant for you? So this particular question, is it because there is no God in Israel? The other side to this question will be, I am the God of Israel. I am here. Why don't you come to me? And therefore, when the prophet Elijah met the servants of the king of Ahaziah, and then he said this, Yahweh is the king. So again and again, the prophets are insisting that one God.
Yes.
Your basic sinfulness is you are running away from the true God, and you are running after emptiness. The God of Ekron is not going to help you. And also, the implication is, you will die. So what a terrible judgment it is.
Yes.
Exactly what Elijah told King Ahab in the context of the Naboth incident.
Yes.
Because the father was repentant, he said, I won't destroy your line yet.
Yeah.
I will do it in your son's
Yeah.
time. So this is a fulfillment of that prophecy.
At the same time, God takes seriously his repentance. Therefore, I forgive you. But afterwards, we find that Ahab continued in his sinfulness to a large extent, human situation. It is a human predicament. I mean, when I am confronted with the reality, I am sorry for some time. Afterwards, I again fall back.
So, Father, this God doesn't give another chance of repentance.
God was giving chances after chances. See how many times God was giving him concrete signs. For example, on Mount Carmel,
Yes.
God
Most
was
amazing.
giving him an explicit sign. Because there the challenge was, if Baal is the true God, let him send fire from heaven.
Yes.
Or if Yahweh is the true God, let him send. And it was shown there when Elijah offered the sacrifice. Fire came down from heaven and consumed the offering. One side. And then Elijah said, until I command, the rain will not come.
Yes.
3 years of drought, it is terrible. And then the prophet said, now rain is going to come. Because they had the popular understanding, Baal is the Lord of fertility and the God of nature. And Elijah said, no, it is not Baal, but Yahweh. So upon his command, then after this challenge on Mount Carmel, Elijah said, Lord God, send forth rain now. Because that we have analyzed once, the deeper implication of his prayer.
Yes.
Elijah, he is the prophet of Yahweh, a fiery prophet we can say. And then fire came down from heaven. And then he told King Ahab, hurry up, because rain is coming.
Going to come.
Though there was no sign of any cloud.
Yes.
And that is why he told his servants, go and look towards the sea.
Yes.
And the servant came back and said, I see nothing. He said, again go back. It is said 7 times he had to go back.
Yes.
And then 6 times he came and said, I do not see anything. Then for the 7th time the prophet said, go and look. Then he said, I see something. A small cloud coming up from the horizon, like the shape of a hand.
Yes.
And then that is it. So the absolute trust which the prophet has. Because he has got the complete trust and the confidence that Yahweh, he alone is the God of nature.
Thank you, Father.
In fact, the prayer that he prays, Father, is such a beautiful prayer. He says, God, show these people that I am doing these things in your name.
Yeah, correct.
Because you have sent me. So it's not that I stand here on my own.
Yeah, precisely that is the implication. Lord, it is you.
Yes.
It is for you I am standing. And later on we have a small incident in the life of Elijah. Elijah, he was a human person also, because when Jezebel threatened him,
Yes, and he
Jezebel said, if I do not do to you as you did to the prophets of Baal, by this time tomorrow,
Yes.
that is in 24 hours time,
I'm going to
I'm
kill
going
you.
to cut off your head. And poor fellow, he was frightened. And he was running for his life.
Yes.
And it is said he went to the desert 1 day's journey.
Yes.
And he sat away completely exhausted and desperate.
Yes.
And he said, enough, O Lord, enough.
Yes.
I am no better than my ancestors.
Yes.
Take my life.
Yes.
That's what he said. And then poor fellow, he fell asleep.
Yes.
And it is said, God sent an angel with fresh bread and water.
Yes. Freshly baked.
Yeah, freshly baked, it is said. It's a warm bread it is. And then when he got up, he ate. And then he slept again. And then he got up. And the angel said, eat again,
Yes.
because you have a long way to go. And this man ate. And it is said, in the strength of that bread, he was walking for 40 days until he reached the mountain of the Lord. So that means it's a beautiful incident. So in the life of this man who is desperate and exhausted, God is coming. I know that you are desperate now, but I don't give you up. I am there at critical moment. You say, take away your life, no? But I am not going to take away your life. You have something more to do. So this is precisely also an indication for us. When someone is appointed by God to carry out a specific mission, there will be moments of setback. There will be moments of despair. And there will be moments when you say, Lord, enough is enough. Now take my life. But God said, no, I have something more for you. Not only that he will say this, but by concrete justice. That is the experience of everybody who can examine the vicissitudes of their life in the concrete context. God never leaves us alone. So that is actually the lesson which Prophet Elijah gives.
Father, what is the meaning of wearing a hairy mantle and belt?
Yeah. King Ahaziah asked his servants, what type of man was it who told you that why is it that you went to the god of Ekron? Is it because there is no God in Israel? Then the servants replied, he is a man with hairy mantle and a belt. Those days, the prophets, they had a special type of habit, and they were wearing this hairy mantle. As for example, we find in the New Testament, John the Baptist. He had a garment made of camel's hair and a belt. Maybe because of their lifestyle, so it will not be easily torn. And a simple lifestyle, ascetic way of life. So all those things are implied by this. So wearing a hairy mantle and a belt was a sign of a prophet. And it is because of this that King Ahaziah said, yes, he is Elijah the prophet.
Thank you, Father.
Father, why did Elijah bring down fire on the first two delegations that came to him?
That's the spirit of the Old Testament. Because King Ahaziah had sent a delegation with 50 soldiers and a captain. And he went and said, oh, man of God, come down. The king is ordering. Elijah did not like that. On the one hand, he is addressed as man of God. If I am the man of God, you should give the proper respect that is due to me. And he said, it is king's order. Now, indirectly he is asking. He is asking without asking. Is your king greater than God? Because it is God who sent me to tell you. Since you did not give proper or due respect to God and to the prophet of God, now this is what is going to happen. And that's why he said, let fire come down from heaven and consume you. And this is what happened to the first group and to the second group. Now, as far as we are concerned, for the New Testament sensibility, it is too much.
It implies a lot of cruelty.
Yeah, correct.
And I think, like you said before, it's when you look at it from the New Testament context, it is different.
Because we have an incident in the Gospel of Luke, it is chapter 9. When Jesus was passing through Samaria, the Samaritans did not want to welcome him. Then John asked Jesus, Jesus, shall we bring down fire from heaven as Elijah did? Jesus said, you don't know what spirit you have come. The Son of Man has come not to destroy but to save. And that is the spirit of the New Testament. And it is said he went to another village. If they are not willing to welcome me, it's okay. So the same thing Jesus said when he sent the disciples to preach. Supposing one town or village, if it does not welcome you, you throw up the dust at your feet and come away. And tell them on the day of judgment, it will be far better for Sodom and Gomorrah. So I have told you this. It is your responsibility and not to curse them. Therefore, this is the approach which New Testament takes. At the same time, the Old Testament, that is an understanding of morality. And then usually people ask, if this is the Word of God, why is it there is a difference between the morality of the Old Testament and that of the New? Then our answer is, the Old Testament is not the last word in morality. God was gradually preparing a people. But when it comes in the fullness of time, Jesus is the fullness of revelation, and Jesus stands as the fullness of morality. Therefore, what we have to do and to have the attitude that we should have is the attitude of Jesus that is clear from his life, his person, and his teachings.
Thank you much, Father. Viewers, thank you very much for being with us on this episode. We heard our Father so beautifully explain to us that the last word in morality is not the Old Testament, but it is in the life of Jesus. Till we meet next time, stay blessed.